Cassie. I'm a clinical dietitian and holistic healer. And thank you for joining in with Divination Dietitian today. This is Jagger in the background. He's my sweet little angel. So he'll be around hanging out with us today. I wanted to go ahead and get started on this reading. So some of the messages, I've already kind of started pulling some of the cards out. So we're just going to start clarifying some of these cards. So the first card that we received was Forgive Yourself. And it says, forgiveness isn't for others, it's for you. Free yourself from guilt and shame. And just want to get some clarifying cards for this. And the second card that I pulled here from the Anatomical Oracle deck was Blood. And we're going to read what this card means here in just a second. So let's get some clarifying cards here for Forgive Yourself. Forgiveness isn't for others, it's for you. Free yourself from guilt and shame. So we have Justice, and we have the Knight of Swords. So definitely justice is coming in. The scales will be balanced. I love these cards. I just think they're so pretty. I love them. And then, this fast horse energy has been definitely, coming through. Obviously, starting in, I believe, February is going to be the fire horse energy. So this is definitely coming in, right? Justice for all. Balancing out the scales, not just like justice, for others, right? But for ourselves, like that inner balance inside, like inside of your body, balancing out all of those emotions and those really dense energies is going to be extremely important. And the first part of that is forgiving yourself, right? I just want one more, please. One more for Forgive Yourself. Free yourself from guilt and shame. Yes, we have a new beginning. So like I was saying, this really fast incoming energy of justice and balancing the scales inside of yourself is going to help you start with a brand new beginning. And, I just want to actually read the message here for blood. So when we think about blood, right? Like as a dietitian, when I think about blood, I think about iron. It's very iron rich. And, you have to obviously have a very healthy diet in order to get enough iron. You can do heme iron, non-heme iron. If you'd like to understand a little bit more about, especially if you're anemic, right? We want to make sure that we are not deficient in iron in order to have a really healthy blood formation. Oxygen-rich blood carries nutrients to every cell of your body, to every organ of your body. So having that oxygenated blood and having, healthy red blood cells is really what is going to carry all of the nutrition to every organ in order to heal. And so when I think about that, it's like when you're forgiving yourself, you're able to really provide that nutrition to the rest of your body and your bodily organs. But when we hold on to a lot of those like really dense toxic energies of not forgiving ourselves and holding resentment towards ourselves as well as towards others, there's going to be some type of deficiency that occurs. And so here, the blood. So the key words are teamwork, unity. So we were talking about balance and unity within ourselves, that justice, support and defend, working or existing harmoniously as part of a strong team, group, or unit. So the blood is part of that team to provide oxygenated blood, oxygen to the rest of the bodily system, the rest of the organs. As a unit, you help to ensure the smooth running of a tight ship. You rely on your teammates as much as they rely on you, and together you are an unstoppable force. However, if one member of the group is experiencing difficulties, this can create an imbalance. Regularly check in with yourself and members of your circle. Very interesting. So I just want to get, you know what? I'm loving these distortion cards. I'm going to get some clarifying messages here. Forgiveness isn't for others, it's for you. Free yourself from guilt and shame. Can we get some clarifying messages for the blood? What is the distortion here, please? Okay, so negative interpretations. So it's saying, this is the distortion here. I interpret ambiguous situations or comments in a negative light. I assume the worst intentions even when evidence is lacking. Consider alternative interpretations. Don't jump to negative conclusions. Okay. Are there any other distortions that are happening here? What are the other distortions? Okay. Catastrophizing. So I imagine the worst possible scenario and assume it's going to happen. I blow things out of proportion and expect disaster. Keep things in perspective. Don't blow problems out of proportion. Okay. So there's definitely an imbalance. I think we can all agree on that. And then, wow, okay. Comparative thinking. I constantly compare myself to others, especially in areas where I feel insecure. I measure my worth based on how I stack up against others. Yeah. Okay. So, these are the things that we need to forgive ourselves for, right? So, but if we don't point this out and have the awareness and understanding that this is what we're doing, because a lot of times we don't necessarily see that we're operating in this way, but we can see how other people might be operating in this way. But what's great about being in a relationship is that both of you can reflect back to each other, like where you still need to grow. I know it can be really difficult when you're mirroring that to somebody, or if someone is mirroring it to you and then now you're getting defensive because they're seeing through what's actually happening. And so that can be highly triggering. And so for me, obviously this video is to just help you, but definitely considering alternative interpretations, not jumping to conclusions, keeping things in perspective, not blowing them out of proportion. And then, not comparing yourself to others. So just making sure that, we are balancing that inner union and releasing the attachments of these limiting belief systems that we have about somebody or about ourselves, releasing that, and then forgiving yourself for judging or maybe misinterpreting something is going to help you move into this new cycle, this brand new beginning. So the next card that I got was let go of what could have been. Grief often hides in the story of what didn't happen. Release the almost and return to the now. I know that personally I have struggled with this in several different relationships where I got highly triggered and I pulled back really hard and just kind of like cut them off. And but then you ruminate on it, right? You're like thinking about what could have been, if you would have reacted in a different way, or if you would have said things differently, or maybe you were catastrophizing something or interpreting something in a negative way. And then it led you down this path of this belief system that was actually not even true. And then you ended up missing out on a connection with somebody because of your belief systems, right? Or like the way that your brain was like processing and interpreting your perception of reality. So let's get some clarifying cards here. And then what came out with let go of what could have been is the lungs. And on my channel, I made a post about the lungs. There's definitely something here with breath work and healing the lungs, especially recently. So go check out that post. And there's different plant medicines that you can use to help you with lung healing. So on the bottom of the deck, we have 6 of Wands, which is a victory. So let go of what could have been. Can we please get some clarifying cards here? Grief often hides in the story of what didn't happen. So we've got walking away. We have the 8 of Cups. Release the almost and return to the now. Definitely doing some breath work to help release a lot of this either worrisome energy that you're holding within your chest or within your mind here. We have 7 of Wands. Release the almost and return to the now. And then we have Strength. So, it's this kind of like, it's almost kind of like either you or somebody was like basically walked away from this situation. But you're also in this like defensive energy, right? And, you have this strength. Almost what I'm getting is like, almost like, obviously we walk away from certain things, like whether it's interpreting something incorrectly or perceiving something incorrectly. But then a lot of times, like, you might actually be right on point. You know what I mean? And it's like, so that's hard, right? To figure out, like, is it me? Like, is it the way that I think or how I'm interpreting this? And then you start second guessing, right? And then you have that back and forth energy where you're like, should I step forward and give this another shot and then apologize? And then you basically are the one taking the blame for it. And it's not about blame. It's just about, sometimes we don't even trust ourselves with the decisions that we're making. So then that kind of sometimes like puts us in this like weird back and forth energy if you aren't trusting your intuition or trusting your gut feeling about somebody. But at the end of the day, it could also be the fact that you are negatively interpreting the situation. So, I mean, it's going to be different for every person that's watching this. But, with this 7 of Wands, it's like you're feeling the need to protect yourself, but you're also grieving over what could have been. And so sometimes we like hold this like strong barrier, protective barrier, defensive barrier to where it's like, no, like, I'm not going to give this person another chance because they're going to hurt me. Right. And it's like, people can't hurt you. It's the way that you're interpreting it. And it's kind of like a victim mentality. Right. But you can only give someone so many chances. So it's like every person is going to be different in terms of how this is interpreted. So you just really have to learn how to trust your intuition, but also have the awareness and the insight of your own behavior and how you're contributing to the problem, whether it's catastrophizing, maybe you have a short temper or a short fuse. And so your mind immediately goes to a defense mode. And so you're like catastrophizing the situation and making it a lot bigger than what it is. And so, or like, you're interpreting the situation in a negative way when maybe that person didn't necessarily mean it that way, or they said it the wrong way, or whatever it was. So, but either way, the advice here is to let go of what could have been. And then I just want to pull some of these distortion cards here, please, for the lungs. And then we are going to read the message for the lungs. But I definitely, oh, yeah. So we've got what if thinking, right? So the message was let go of what could have been, release the almost, and return to the now. So this is, I obsessively worry about future events, imagining various worst case scenarios. I get caught up in a cycle of what if questions, what if thinking. Stay in the present moment, address problems if and when they arise. So, yeah, that's pretty on point. And then this one is negativity bias. I focus on negative events and emotions even when positive ones are present. I tend to overlook or downplay positive experiences. Balance negative thoughts with positive ones. Practice gratitude to shift your focus. Okay. Let's do one more. Oops. We have negative self-talk. I engage in a constant stream of critical and self-deprecating thoughts. I reinforce my negative beliefs about myself. Challenge negative thoughts with positive affirmations. Be your own cheerleader. So I'm kind of picking up that, like, picking up on that, like, energy of, like, not trusting your gut or trusting your intuition, almost like second guessing yourself. And maybe in the past, you had a lot of negative toxic behaviors and you're trying really hard to be a different version of you. And so you're always analyzing yourself, right? But then it creates this lack of trust in yourself, or I don't know how to really explain that, but it's like self-deprecating thoughts. I reinforce my negative beliefs about myself. Yeah, it's like you can't trust what you're seeing. And it's like here, even here in the picture, it's like you in the mirror. It's almost like you can't fully trust what you're seeing, right? It's like you are confused about how to interpret reality almost. And it's like, I definitely understand that struggle for sure. Cause I mean, I've been there. Let's read the lungs. So, where is it? Sorry. Okay. Keyword: sadness, grief, detachment, and loss. You have experienced a great loss and you need time to grieve and process your emotions. You may be feeling extreme sadness, feelings of detachment, emotional fog, or find yourself retreating inwards. Emotional processing is unique to every individual. Remove any expectations you may have of how you should be processing grief. Whew. Yeah. It's almost like being in a mental prison, It's like that mental chatter, and it's like I call it, the trickster, and it's like those negative thought entities that come in and manipulate your thoughts about your perception of somebody. And with every negative thought about somebody, you can turn it around and transmute that into something positive. What can I learn from this? How can I react differently in this situation versus being really triggered, right? Or just learning how to process in a healthier way and taking a time out to really listen to your intuition and meditate on what the best decision would be going forward. And this is, again, going to be different for everybody. But it sounds like it's almost kind of like a little bit of like self-sabotaging behavior almost, which it makes it a lot more painful when we do it to ourselves, and it's like, this is why we have the forgive yourself card here, because we're doing it to ourselves, and it's almost like a repeated cycle that we keep doing, and something has to change, right? So the next card is unbind inner chains. Your soul's ready to be free. Let go of self-imposed limitations and step into your power. And then the next one too came out for this one. So release past wounds. Old wounds hold your energy hostage. Let go of what no longer serves you and make space for healing. And then with that, we got the bone, which we're going to read here shortly. So let's get some clarifying cards here for this. So we have unbind inner chains. Your soul is ready to be free. Let go of self-imposed limitations. Yeah, we're keeping ourselves stuck because we're thinking about what could have been, and we're not forgiving ourselves because you're feeling guilt and shame about the way that you handled a certain situation, or how you interpreted something, or whatever it might be. And so unbind inner chains. Let your yeah. So we have the 8 of Swords. So we are keeping ourselves stuck here. Let go of self-imposed limitations and step into your power. Release past wounds. Old wounds hold your energy hostage. Yeah, the 2 of Wands. Okay. So she's leaving that 1 wand behind her, and she's holding the 1 wand, which is the Page of Wands, moving forward. Yeah, so we have 6 of Pentacles. So it's that equal give and take, the reciprocity. And if you want to check out my last reading, it was about this. It was like almost like as if you were like overextending, giving too much, but then not getting it reciprocated, which then created a lot of this resentment, and learning how to have healthier boundaries and not overextending your energy. With the 8 of Wands and the Ace of Wands, Queen of Wands. Yeah, I mean, there's so many good cards here underneath. It's like once you release these chains of shame and guilt and not forgiving yourself, and then holding on to this grief about what could have been with this person, once you release all of that and let it go and start trusting yourself that you have made the right decision for yourself, and that you don't have to sacrifice your needs or self-abandon your own needs, allow yourself to step into this new creative energy, because you have really really beautiful cards here underneath. You have the Eight of Wands, you have the Ace of Wands, and then you have the Queen of Wands, and then you have the Empress, and then you have the Four of Wands. And so it's like you are about to step into really creative, sexual, fertile energy once you release this really heavy, dense, it's almost like trauma. Like in every relationship that you've had, it's like you're repeating the same cycle over and over, and it's like we have to do things differently now. And so it's like, allowing, forgiving yourself for self abandoning, and then not, you know trusting yourself. Okay, so the bone, I wanted to read what this one was. I've never pulled this one either. Okay, it is. So obviously with the bone, we think about like the bones are extremely hard and solid, right? And stable, because it's what is holding the weight of our body. It's how we're able to walk. This is a femur bone. So this is like an extremely powerful, thick, stable bone. And so it's almost like we're trying to embody more of the stability. And I think that's why the Four of Wands was there as well. It's a very stable, strong energy. So we have the key words are stable, reliable, unyielding, and inflexible, which is true. Bones are not very flexible unless you're like a baby, right? Um, Dependable, with strong work ethic and a disciplined and regimented approach to all aspects of life. Although at times you can give the impression of being inflexible and uncompromising, what does not bend runs the risk of breaking. You may benefit from being a little softer and more easygoing at times. Relinquish control. Well, so in this case, maybe we're being a little too firm, a little too solid, and it's like that really black or white type of energy. There's like no gray, there's no flexibility, there's no fluidness. So, you know, yeah. I also have the neuron underneath the deck. And then over here we have learn from pain. Pain is a catalyst for change. Allow it to lead you to deeper wisdom and growth. And do you see how there's a rock and there's a plant growing out of it? Like the rock kind of feels like this femur bone where it's like super solid. And do you see how it's breaking? And then there's a little sprout coming out of it. It's almost kind of like the advice is to like almost like break your femur bone. But you know what I mean here. Like it's almost kind of like being so hard is preventing your ability to grow and learn how to be more fluid and accepting and forgiving of yourself, but also of others. Um, and then what was also under this was heal parent child karma. Healing the bond with your parents frees you from the past. It's time to release old wounds and move forward. And it has the same like little plant here. And maybe you had a toxic father, and there could be something about that, and that is what is affecting your ability to have or perceive to have healthier relationships with men. And so you have very hard, strong boundaries that you have put as like a protective mechanism for yourself, because of the wounds that you have from your father. And so it's like you are not willing to be a little more flexible and allow people to grow. Um, and so this is coming from a really deep child wound that you have. Yeah. So I want to. Oh yeah. Okay. So I want to see what the neuron is, but we also have the rib cage, which the rib cage is protection. When we think about the rib cage, it protects your heart, it protects your lungs, and your internal organs, your upper chambers. So this protective rib cage, it's like you don't allow anyone to penetrate the heart or get into the heart or chest cavity, because you're protecting, with this rib cage. And so, do you see how like you have like grief with the lungs, but then we have the rib cage here, which is like protecting yourself, right? But really, you still are carrying grief. So it's like if you're already grieving already, it's like what are you actually? You're not really protecting yourself from anything. You're just like kind of like containing the grief in your chest cavity. But I want to see what this neuron, um, the neuron means, because obviously there's something going on mentally, in our brain. It's how we're processing, we're perceiving. It's like pain and grief, and it's like when we think about like the neuron, it's communication, because your neurons are communicating to each other, and it's how you're processing that communication and those neural pathways in your nervous system in your brain. And there has to be it's like there has to be a new pathway that we create, and you know what I mean, like in order to actually start to perceive things a little bit differently, um, and really recognizing where that trauma is stemming from, so that we can get to the root of the problem and start really regulating our nervous system. Um, One thing that is like, I've been called to do a whole reading about this, but blue vervain is helps with trauma and nervous system healing. And but it is a very powerful plant medicine, and I'm not going to make any recommendations at this time, but I will do a reading on blue vervain at some point soon. But it is related to trauma and the nervous system. So if you want to do your own research about blue vervain, I recommend you do that, and see if there's some way that maybe that could help you. It is a very bitter plant, so it doesn't taste well. The tea is very bitter. There's other ways that you can take blue vervain, like if you put it in honey. But you'll have to do your research on that. I just don't want to make any recommendations at this time. But really for liability reasons, just because depending on what medications that you're on, you could have some type of nutrient drug interaction or herbal reaction, depending on what type of medicine you're taking. But definitely look into that. But this is very important, because this is definitely coming from a neural wiring in the brain. So the neuron means, so the key words are open communicator, efficient and conscientious, confident, a clear and concise communicator, hardworking, observant, and a good listener. Others see you as reliable, trustworthy person who can get a task done quickly, efficiently, and to a high standard. You may be excelling at your place of work or cultivating, maintaining a flourishing friendship or family relationship. So this is, you can interpretate that how you'd like, but how I'm interpreting it in this message is that communication needs to happen. So whether that means communicating about maybe past mistakes that you have made with a specific person, and that way you can kind of clear that energy and karma, And whether you end up together or not, you can just still kind of own up to maybe where you went wrong or maybe some mistakes that you made based off of negative interpretations or perceptions by catastrophizing or like what if thinking, because that what if thinking can create catastrophizing. And it's almost like it's fear, basically. It's false experiences appearing real. And you know, that's that protective, hard, solid, the femur bone. So, let's clarify with some of these distortion cards here with the femur bone, because that's solid, which is, it can be good, but it can also be bad if it's over an excess. And so, like I said, this rock here is very solid, but it's now breaking. And that is exactly what this femur bone message was recommending, right? So we have personalization. I blame myself for things that are not my fault. I see myself as the center of the universe and take things personally. Understand that not everything is about you. Don't blame yourself for everything. So again, like this could be about, no, Jagger, we're not going out yet. Come here. No, mommy's not done yet. You have to wait, okay? Yeah, you have to wait. You have to wait. But yeah, so again, like this is like, blaming yourself for everything, but the other person has faults too. Like you can't blame yourself for everything, but you can at least own up to where maybe you went wrong or maybe where you were perceiving things a certain way and have open communication about what happened. So we have fairness fallacies. I see life as a zero-sum game and believe that my success means someone else's failure. I expect everything to be fair. Life isn't always fair. Accept unfairness and focus on your response. And so you see how you have like the scales here of justice? Not everyone is going to be where you are, right? Like you might be a little bit further along than somebody else, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We're not looking down on anybody, but sometimes they don't have the necessary skills or knowledge or awareness that you might have. And so sometimes that can actually lead you into always being the one blaming yourself and always being the one apologizing for things because you're immediately assuming that you're the one that is at fault here, right? So it's like the scales are it's a very fine line between like recognizing where you went wrong, but also not blaming yourself for what others have done and their part in it as well. So, and then the other one that came out was emotional reasoning. I let my feelings dictate my thoughts and actions. If I feel bad, I must be bad. Understand that feelings don't always reflect reality. Question your emotions. So definitely slow down. And if something's triggering you in the moment, or if someone says something and then you start to interpretate something a certain way, maybe really slow down, count to 10, and then, tell that person like what I'm hearing, like reflect it back. What I'm hearing you say is da 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 da. And am I hearing you correctly? Is this what you're saying? And maybe that will help you slow down and really help correct these behaviors and these negative interpretations that your neurons are like synapsing. And it's almost like a learned pathway in your brain where you're automatically immediately going to negative thoughts or patterns. And that's what's leading to this like catastrophic thought patterns, And so it's like when you reflect back what someone says to you and you say, I'm interpreting what you're saying in this way. And then see if they say yes or no, if they say no, like I meant it this way, or no, you're hearing me incorrectly. Like what I meant was this. Like that way, it at least kind of slows down your thought process and those neural synapses, like from jumping to conclusions. And I think that that might actually really help with allowing you to be less solid, like rock solid in your belief system, right? And like the femur bone, right? It's like so solid that you immediately jump to a certain belief system or conclusion when it could be wrong. And so there's no room to be flexible. And so that's just some of the advice here. And I want to just pull one more final message and then we will get out of here. So the message is the heart: love, vitality, courage, strength, core, center, emotions, and passion. So definitely some heart healing here, but also some mental healing with our brain and just making sure that we are really interpreting things. Okay, and then we have tongue, which is expression, truth, taste, pleasure, control, lies, critique, and speech. And then we have spine, alignment, evolution, spirituality, self discovery, confidence, and rigidity. So, again, like I feel like a lot of these things need to be expressed. And I'm hoping that this reading really helped you in some way. And if you need any help with nutrition or dietetics, or if you want to learn more about herbal medicine or about blue vervain to help with nervous system healing, please email me in the description box below. And thank you so much for watching with Divination Dietitian. I hope you have a great day.